I actually have my own AI pessimism. I feel like we had hit a plateau in terms of where AI had gone for a bit with the current approaches. And so I was wondering, are we not going to see a new leap forward until we have quantum computing? And if we ever get quantum computing, suddenly things like how we've approached passwords would need to be radically rethunk.
Welcome to Learning Through Technology, a K-12 EdTech podcast proudly presented by STS Education. I'm Alex Inman, founder of Educational Collaborators.
And I'm Bob Cerruti, founder of the EdTech Group. We're here to bring educators together, helping them unlock the full potential of learning through technology.
Tune in every other week as we connect with education leaders and dive deep into topics that matter to you, delivering actionable ideas straight to your school. Welcome to the show. Well, Bob, we've got a known quantity on our podcast today as our guest. So we've got Lane Young, a colleague of mine, a customer of yours, and he's going to share a little bit about we both wanted him on because he's really been proactive, particularly for schools, in his cybersecurity approach.
Yeah, I am quite interested to hear what led Lane down this path. I talked to lots of people in technology in schools, and they know there's a cyber threat out there, as we all do. Right. You have to live under a rock not to know. But he was a guy who a year and a half ago, was out seeking solutions. And beyond just the two-factor authentication backup sort of thing, he was seeking out best practices, best solutions for a school. So I'm interested to hear what triggered that, how we got the support of the school, and how the implementation went.
Well, let's get into it. I'm particularly and personally excited about our guest today. We have Lane Young, the Director of Strategic Operations and Technology at Phillips Brooks School in California. And I have known Lane since his Lake Michigan area independent school days, right? The LeMays days, when we were both working in the Chicagoland area. I was closer to the Milwaukee, but they still called it the same group. So anyway, we have Lane with us today. Lane, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to talk with both of you today.
So tell our audience a little bit about yourself and also your journey through EdTech. I know some of this, but I want our audience to hear it, and I'm pretty sure I'll pick up a nugget or two that's new.
Yeah, so my journey to EdTech started with me being employed at a parochial school where I was teaching fourth grade and really enjoying it, but wasn't necessarily paid as much as I was hoping to get paid. And so a colleague, yeah, I know, surprise. And so so I'd been working at a public library since I was 14 and had kind of gradually moved up in responsibilities there. And a colleague had heard from a school that was desperate for someone to do library and ed tech, and they had reached out to her and were like, "Can you do this job?" And she was like, "No, but I have someone who can," and that was me. So interviewed, and it was the fastest interview process I had ever gone through. So did kind of 2 rounds within 36 hours and then got the job offer. And that was really the start of my EdTech, was through my background in libraries. And then a few years into that journey, I was offered the chance to kind of lead those departments at my school. So they were going to be merged into a new department and lead those departments. And so that was really how I kind of found myself in EdTech leadership, which wasn't expecting to get into EdTech in general, and was definitely not expecting to get into leadership, but found myself here, and obviously have continued because I love the opportunities that it affords.
Awesome. And there's more to this story too, right? Because you've got, not only are you in EdTech leadership now there's also like an operations piece to your work. Is that right?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I was like, I really love Phillips Brooks School. It's a great school, but kind of looking for what the right next step is in my career, because I feel like I've been doing the EdTech and technology leadership in general for a bunch of years now, and ready to do something new and exciting. And so can we find something internal to help make that happen, rather than me finding that next step at a different school? And so out of those discussions came this new role. And so basically there's kind of 2 pieces to this. I help with the school's implementation of our strategic plan. So we had just adopted a strategic plan as we were having these discussions. And so I am partnering up with our associate head of school. She actually is the number 2 here, and kind of help extend her reach and help extend her capacity in our strategic plan implementation. And then also took over some areas that were being underserved, but we knew was important, primarily around safety and security of all kinds, not just the digital kind.
Cool. Awesome. Lane, I have bad news for you to start with. If you think that pay in public school is bad, you should try podcasting. You're wrong. So I think we'd like to know a little bit more about Phillips Brooks. I mean, we've had superintendents who are Montgomery Public Schools to specialists in other independent and public schools. Tell us a bit about Phillips Brooks.
Yeah, so we're a private ELC through 5th grade. So ELC is our early learning center, which basically means we have 3 and 4-year-olds all the way up through 5th grade. And so we are really focused in on that elementary school experience here in the Bay Area, so we're right in the heart in Menlo Park and in the heart of Silicon Valley. And so that is certainly a unique opportunity to really focus in on those early years in a private school setting, which means we have a lot of flexibility and freedom and some opportunities to really try and deliver high quality education, but also in a place that has a lot of high quality public school offerings, right? And so that really challenges us to make sure that we are delivering something above and beyond what or different that our families can't get in the public schools, which are really great in our area.
Lane, you join us at the end of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month for October. So, of course, we're going to talk about cybersecurity with you. The thing that I'd like to ask is a director of technology and operations, which really brings together all of that, cyber and physical security. What do you think? We all know now, if you're not aware of the cyber risks to schools at this point, I don't know what else can be done to make you aware of them. But given all that, why do you think schools and educational institutions still remain vulnerable? Or one of the highest vulnerable sectors is reported by like the FBI and other security awareness organizations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Bob. For me, it's really the people element as much as anything. And I think that kind of plays out in a couple of unique and thoughtful ways in a school setting. So first, I think unlike some for-profit areas, schools and other nonprofit institutions sometimes have a little bit harder time with change and updates. And because of the risks and vulnerabilities for cybersecurity and best practices and opportunities are constantly changing, I think schools and other nonprofits can sometimes find it harder to do the people management, the people change pieces to really help their to really help their people stay on top of things. That you can't just invest in this great piece of hardware or this great piece of software and say, we're done with cybersecurity, that it really is your people are always going to be your biggest threat vector. And so I think there is that element. And then on top of that, you have people who teachers have a lot of autonomy within their classroom space and varying degrees depending on the school setting, but will have varying degrees of abilities to try new things out. And so that just creates its own pieces because if you're giving your teachers a lot of autonomy to really try, be local administrators on their computer or otherwise trying out new apps and opportunities with their students, that's also going to then open up new avenues for potential risk on the cybersecurity threat if you're not partnering and really going with it. So I would say it's those two pieces, and then obviously combined with just the financial leanness that many schools have to operate under. So cybersecurity isn't cheap, even when we are kind of talking about those hardware software pieces. And so making those investments is an ongoing piece, which is its own challenge. And so I think you kind of combine those all together and find that schools are often places that struggle in this area.
One of the things that Bob and I chat about with regards to cybersecurity, and I think this relates some to the environment that you were just talking about, is what makes a good technology person in a school is that they are generalists, right? They have broad sets of skills because there's only so many people you can have in your department, right? Do you think that sort of the industry's tendency towards hiring more generalists and not specialists like a cybersecurity specialist makes us a bigger target?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think we're seeing kind of the danger from that escalate. So I think it was possible to really do cybersecurity well as a generalist when I started in EdTech 15 plus years ago. That it was just in the same way you kind of generally had to understand networks and you generally had to understand education, right? And you might, depending on the contours of your job, it would look a little different, but it was certainly possible to check all those boxes in a way. I don't think it's possible to keep afloat and keep on top of all the things that you need in kind of your day-to-day. Like, if I don't do this, things are going to break or people are going to get mad at me, and also really stay on top of cybersecurity in that thoughtful, in-depth way. I find that a challenge, and that was certainly something that we noticed at PBS, that I knew there was a risk there, even though I think we're doing cybersecurity well on the people front. I knew there was a risk because I knew how much I didn't know.
So I struggled a little bit with that last question because I had two questions based off of what you had just said. And so thank you for answering the one that I decided to ask first. So the other thing that you mentioned as sort of like a challenge in the education environment is the funding, right? And the reality is funding is always finite in any world, but I think it's a little more limited in schools. And so one of the reasons we wanted to have you particularly on this show is because you've invested in some proactive cybersecurity measures in your environment, and we don't see that a lot. And so I wanted to, I think we're seeing it more and more, but you were kind of a leader in this space. And so I wanted to kind of tell us a little bit about some of the proactive investments you made, and then why did you choose with your precious funds to spend money on that?
Yeah. So I think we've invested in a number of areas, right? And so we were early adopters of a phishing platform, for instance, right? So as those started to be out there, we adopted those early. And actually, I think to really kind of get at the heart of it, my first year here, we had a person who works for a venture capital firm and was investing in cybersecurity firms, basically come and speak to me and our head of school and was like, listen, I think PBS is great. I also think you need to realize just how much risk there is around here. And that really kind of spurred myself and our head of school to be like, yep, everything he's saying makes sense. This is the value of being in the heart of Silicon Valley, that we have access to industry people that are going to be able to further our knowledge. So what can we do in a way that is fiscally responsible and is responsible given our people? And so that really was a great spur and has kind of caused me to continue to think about it. And so it started with the training piece. We adopted multi-factor authentication very early on, for instance, right? And so kind of did that. And it certainly helped that I had leadership, as high of the leadership as we have at an independent school. Our head of school, or the superintendent and equivalent, was bought in on this, so that as I came and said, this is the next thing that we need to do, the answer was always, yes, I, agree. And then on the investment piece, it's easy because there are the horror stories out there of the schools that, suffered in various ways, whether through ransomware, right? So that's the biggest piece, but even in smaller ways, that through the data. I just feel a particular responsibility for the data that we have a lot of data about these families. We have a lot of data about their children. And I need to take that really seriously, that this is part of our obligation to educating them. And I think we still have that obligation to those families and to those children to protect their information, their data, their identities, because we're living in a digital world. I didn't really answer the proactive piece. So, I think we have, so I kind of mentioned that we started with phishing, and then I've always been, okay, what's the next thing that we can do here? And then it is about finding the resources. And so we made a bigger decision to kind of reallocate some of our human resources in ways that would allow us to invest more in cybersecurity. And that is certainly through the work that we've done with EdTech and Bob and his great team there. And so that was really, for us, was that we just thought of that as enough of a priority that we were like, we're going to invest some resources that had been in an FTE. Can we reinvest those in ways that allow us to do what we were doing with that person here on campus, but also then find some funds in an ongoing sustainable way to invest in the cybersecurity elements?
Lane, I want to take us back to something you said earlier, and I will paraphrase, but to my ear, you were saying that essentially some of these cybersecurity measures that we have to take could stifle the creativity of teachers in how they're educating students, or inhibits them some. Not being an local admin on their machine is something, and that's unique to schools. It's been 20 years or more since a business or a large corporation allowed or wanted their users to be an admin on a local machine. IT people for 2 decades would scream in horror at that idea. So, and that's kind of how the solutions go, right? They're all meant for these big businesses. How do we bridge that gap to K-8 students, in your world, or K-12 students in our listeners' world, to strike that balance of being able to educate and create, but still be safe?
Well, we have made the decision that our teachers are local admins on their computers, right? And I will never forget a cybersecurity audit that we did, right, with a firm that was used to doing audits at banks and venture capital firms. And we got dinged on a whole slew of things. And that created I got some value out of it, but truthfully, it created a whole bunch of extra work for me, because we now had this report that our head of school knew we were getting, that our board knew we were getting. And so I had to then put that report in context, in an educational context of here's why it is not inappropriate for us to allow USBs to be plugged into computers. Here is why it is not inappropriate for us to allow, not only is it not inappropriate, it's actually would be harmful to our mission and to our teachers if we didn't allow them to be local administrators on their computer. And so I think you're absolutely right. And that's something that I really appreciate, that I feel like there is starting to be increased domain knowledge about cybersecurity within a school context. Because I think something you hit on there, Bob, is really important, is that we don't really just have our teachers as our threat vectors. We also have how many ever hundreds of students on top of that as potential threat vectors within a cybersecurity context. And so I do think that I talked earlier about the people piece. I don't think that's just teachers that we need to be educating. That is also students. And we're probably going to make a different risk reward assessment for our students than we are for our teachers in terms of how much freedom and autonomy we give them in those behind the scene pieces. But I definitely think we have to move education forward, right? We're ultimately here to try and really deliver high quality education in a context that is ever changing to our students. And I think letting teachers have some freedom to try things out so we can do that is really important. And so for us, it's also then about really kind of saying, I'm not here to stifle your creativity. I'm here to partner with you, and I want to be supportive. And my default answer is going to be yes, but I need to know information because I have this whole level of knowledge and experience and understandings of certain things that I'm not going to expect you to understand. But by partnering with me, I can tell you about that. So I can tell you, what, this particular platform is not going to be appropriate to use with an under 13. Can we find a different way? Can we find a different platform? Or can we find a different way that would allow you to do that without trying to have the students log in directly, for instance? So that's a frequent conversation that I'm having, is because of, protections for under 13s in the US, just what that means. And so brainstorming alternatives while still honoring that innovation and creativity that our teachers want to do and I want them to do.
Hey, we don't mean to interrupt, but we're going to take a little break to deliver this brief message.
Are you ready to revolutionize your classroom? Join us at FETC 2025, the premier conference for education technology, from January 14 to 17 at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. Connect with thousands of educators, discover innovative tools, and gain insights to enhance your teaching. Register by December 13th to take advantage of our early bird pricing and use promo code TechLearn2025, no spaces, for an additional 10% off. Visit FETC.org to register now.
ViewSonic is your go-to technology partner for engaging students, fostering collaboration, and elevating learning outcomes. Offering a broad array of future-ready audiovisual solutions, training, and tools that adapt to your school's changing needs. ViewSonic is more than a brand. It's your educational edge. Explore the possibilities today at viewsonic.com/edu.
Imagine a future where students can access tools that spark learning, growth, and creativity. At Lenovo, our K-12 solutions are designed to create a world where EdTech tools are safe and secure, engaging and easy to use, and built for productivity wherever learning takes place. We partner with customers and value lasting relationships. We work closely with you to assess your needs, evaluate options, and customize solutions. We understand the dynamics and trends shaping K-12 today and tomorrow, and how they affect your specific situation. We can help you plan wisely to deploy and scale solutions that will deliver the best student and teacher experiences and improve learning outcomes. We do this all while implementing the right education technology for your use case and budget. Visit us at the link in the show notes below.
Hey there, it's Sophia, executive producer for the show. You know those moments when the episode ends and you're thinking, man, I wish we could talk more about this. Well, guess what? We can. We got this amazing community over on LinkedIn. It's where we share all the good stuff, sneak peeks, cool resources, and quick activities to try out in your school. So here's what I want you to do. Grab your phone, head to LinkedIn, and search for our Learning Through Technology podcast page. Hit that follow button, and boom, you're in. Can't wait to see you there.
I see why we work well together. Something you said there is something that's very important to us. Is my time as a tech director is you are not about no. It's we have to do this for security reasons, or no, we have to do this for the network, or no, it was how do we get to yes? That's what I always tell our team when we're working with educators and school leaders. How do we get to yes? What does that mean? And sometimes it's a compromise, and sometimes it's an acceptance of risk, and other times it's an explanation of we're just not going to take that risk for this reward. So I bet there are teachers who listen to this outside of, my parents and my daughter, who are thinking, I wish I had an IT department that was, how do I get to yes? So I wanted to commend that because I don't think we see it enough. You and I also agreed on this, you said earlier, like there's no piece of hardware or software that you buy and check a box that cybersecurity is taken care of. And that's, for years it was like, how do we go one-to-one? Oh, we buy Chromebooks, or we buy iPads, or we buy PCs, and done, right? We've got it. Or how do we make the network faster? We get more bandwidth, checkbox, right? But there's no checkbox for this. How do you explain that there's no 100%? There's no, this is what you've got to buy. How have you taken that to your school leadership and to your staff to explain that? Because I think that's something that tech directors struggle with, because normally we're used to buying a gadget, putting it out there, and it works.
So something that I talk a lot about in my security role, not just with cyber, but also with physical security, we use the Swiss cheese as a metaphor. So that you're going to have holes in any given layer of your approach, right? So if you think of Swiss cheese, right, there's obviously holes in there. And so what you're trying to do though is put together a block so that no hole goes all the way through there. So if we're trying to do multiple complementary layers so that even if something gets through one particular hole, we have a way of finding it. So in cybersecurity, that might mean that we are doing proactive monitoring of our network activity, for instance. So we are allowing our teachers to have local admin rights, but then we have some ability to flag things that might be suspicious at the network level to say, hey, they've installed something that maybe they shouldn't have. We're trying to do those multiple overlaying levels, and it really is this kind of Swiss cheese metaphor that I found has particularly resonated with people, that they understand that there's going to be multiple layers. There's no one thing. We're trying to do thing after thing, and there's a great graphic that I have that kind of shows those Swiss cheese slices coming together to kind of show how we're going to try and stop things in the end, both on our physical security and our cyber security, but we need those overlapping pieces because there isn't one answer.
I lived in Wisconsin for 12 years, as you know, Lane, and so any cheese metaphor works really well for me. So, but you also talked about some of the proactive monitoring and some of those things, and earlier you mentioned that you kind of want to stay on the forefront and sort of stay in front of these things, and that's why you've been kind of proactive. One of the areas that we're seeing as more and more proactive is these AI, and Bob and I always bicker about what the definition of AI actually is or should be. But as artificial intelligence continues to evolve in cybersecurity, what impact do you think it will have on the cost and or effectiveness of cybersecurity in school environments?
I think one reason we can bicker about it is because AI is such a broad term that it was really easy, right? So that when AI hit the zeitgeist, it was really easy for a lot of what was already happening to just now take the AI brand, and not wrongly so, right? But they chose to play that up. So I think AI should have been a part of a cybersecurity solution, in some form or fashion for half a decade or even a decade by now. I think what we're really looking at, though, is that next level where it is, where it's beyond just kind of your machine learning and machine reinforcement pieces of AI into something that is new and different. And so I think it provides lots of opportunities, but also provides costs, because really high quality AI is actually incredibly resource intensive on both the computer side and we think about the environmental impact that heavy AI usage has as well. And so I think it's going to be an interesting piece where, as we look at the kind of Moore's law as it applies to AI and those costs start to come down, I think the opportunities will go up, and I'm really intrigued and excited. But it's all developing. And so if I had a really great answer to this, I feel like we wouldn't be talking, because I'd be off having founded my own firm to answer this question. But I certainly think it's there in an exciting place.
You've made excellent points about the capability of AI and the, I guess, hope that AI comes to our rescue, and maybe I'm the pessimist here in seeing it as a dangerous, I know, right? A dangerous tool in the wrong hands. That what we may end up with is an expensive arms race of attackers or those with malicious intent using AI to their benefit, because it's agnostic. It doesn't care who puts it to work. And then that puts us on the defensive of needing to either employ more people or AI on the defensive side. And so I hope you're right. I guess it's my job to worry that you're wrong. And so we'll work on that together.
I actually have my own AI pessimism that I wonder if, well, OpenAI's recent piece has suggesting I'm wrong, but I feel like we had hit a plateau in terms of where AI had gone for a bit with the current approaches. And so I was wondering, are we not going to see a new leap forward until we have quantum computing? And if we ever get quantum computing, suddenly things like how we've approached passwords would need to be radically rethunk because of the possibilities that has. And so I do think there is that world, Bob, that I share your pessimism on, that we could see a radical redefinition of what is even needed because of the underlying technology and approaches that happen.
Lane, as we're kind of getting to the end of our conversation, Bob and I like to end every episode with really the same question. So we like to know kind of who is your favorite or most impactful teacher and why?
So my most impactful teacher was my 5th grade teacher, Paul Grant, who, I grew up in the Chicago area, and there was something called the Golden Apple, which was given to teachers as kind of this major award. And he was a Golden Apple winner. He really kind of understood how to do experiential learning in impactful ways that I had never, where blew my mind as a 10-year-old, but also just knew so many other pieces. And then I had the opportunity to go back and do my student teaching under him. So I got to experience him not only as a learner, but as a nascent teacher. And so without a doubt, right, there's the person that has been the most impactful educator for me.
The opportunity to be a student teacher under your favorite master teacher. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you were definitely going to you didn't hesitate on that answer.
Lane has the full circle for us of
exactly. Phenomenal. Well, Lane, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I think that was a very insightful and valuable conversation for a lot of tech directors. Folks sitting in your seats who are making a lot of the same, are struggling to make a lot of the same kinds of decisions. And I think in some ways, your student population, your community population presents unique challenges for you, but like you said, also some pretty unique opportunities, right? But the threat is the same for almost all schools. Like you said, it's a matter of protecting all of your kids. That's necessary, right? And so I really appreciate the value brought to our audience today, and also just to me. So it was great to have you. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I was a little bit excited because before we started to record, Lane made it clear that he had not listened to any of our episodes. And so I thought for a second I might have a chance on the favorite teacher thing, and I lost hard. I lost hard.
Is there any need for me to take another victory lap? I'm getting wore out from going around here in these victory laps.
That's good, funny.
So,
but it was a good conversation. Bob, any sort of takeaways or things that struck you?
Well, I think it was a nice way to wrap up our Cybersecurity Awareness Month little series. I feel very podcasty when I say our mini series or a series or wrapping up our series, which is totally out of character for me, but it was a nice way to wrap it up. Lane and I had a lot in common in what we think about cybersecurity. He used the Swiss cheese term. When talking to people about cybersecurity in schools, I talk about the layered protection. The first layer or first line defenses is knowledge. Our staff needs to know that they are the biggest attack surface, as they call it, in our schools. They're the likely place that is going to come in. And then behind that, you have your software, your EDR, MDR, that is monitoring what's going on that endpoint, whether it's a computer or an iPad or a network switch, just to recognize changes that may have malicious intent. And then further down in that layering, you have a security operations center that is monitoring what's going on those points. Real people in a dark room with all the screens on in front of them monitoring that. And then, further down in those layers, there's more layers, but further down at the end, you have that backstop of the encrypted backup offsite, so that if all else fails, your data is all here, untouched, and you can restore from there. So that's what I took out of it. It's a nice place to bring all of our conversations together over the last month.
I know you just said a lot of good things about cybersecurity, but I'm still thinking about cheese. One thing that struck me was the differences between businesses. You asked the question, but I thought his answer was great too. But the sort of differences between businesses and schools. I didn't ask the question then, but my mind was sort of thinking about, in addition to cheese, was thinking about the evolution of cybersecurity standards, right? Like the NIST, which has literally almost nothing to do with schools, right? And then COSIN came up with their list, which was better, but still missed a lot. And then, then there's the cybersecurity rubric, cybersecurityrubric.org. That's another free resource around there. That's certainly gotten better. Even though that's newer than the Atlas cybersecurity recommendations, I'm still kind of hung on those as my favorite cybersecurity standards for schools, because they just take the people's side into far more account than I think the other ones do. But nonetheless, that change has been pretty significant, and it's good to see, because Lane's challenges is one that a lot of tech directors experience is, how do I calibrate cybersecurity for a K-12 environment, right? Public, private, whatever. And so something to think about. So, well, it was good. Bob, thanks for all the work on our cybersecurity mini series, as you said. And you contributed a lot. I want our listeners to know just how much Bob contributed in thought leadership to us kind of putting this together. You really, really took the lead on this, Bob. Thanks so much on it.
And yet, I didn't get to talk much.
Oh, well.
Maybe next time.
I'd say more this month than probably any episode stretch.
100% right,
That
Alex.
we've
I should go easier on you.
Until next time, my friend.
Learning Through Technology, a K-12 EdTech podcast, is brought to you by STS Education, a Pacific OneSource company. To learn more about how educators can leverage technology to drive successful educational outcomes, check us out at www.stsed.com. Connect with us by searching for Learning Through Technology in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss an episode. On behalf of the team at STS Education, thanks for joining us.